This is Dr. Chris's Radio Horror program, 91.3 FM, WCUW. If you're not catching this live during this recorded interview, hopefully you're going to check it out on the Radio Horror YouTube channel, where you can actually find my guest on Top 10 Nerd. She is one of the commentators for this excellent geek-tastic review of unbelievably awesome content. And how I found her is on the Vampirella episode, because there's not enough Vampirella content on YouTube, I've learned, actually. there isn't. She's not that well known a character to have content. But Amanda McKnight had a great video talking about her, and that's why I had to reach out to her to have her on the show, because this woman and I have the same similar taste in obscure indie comics. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Amanda McKnight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Amanda's not only a commentator of geek-tastic culture, but she's also a model herself and works for a board game company.
Yeah. I mean, I worked for several board game companies in the past. It depends on the flavor of the week for me. I move a lot with that, but yes.
One of the board game companies is putting out some Miskatonic University kind of style board game involving H.P. Lovecraft.
I feel like that is probably a thing. There are lots of actually Lovecraftian style board games in the board game world. There's a really great one. So there's a game that was called Betrayal at House on the Hill. Have you played that game? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have played that game, and I do enjoy it. I try to play it whenever I can find a group of friends to play it with for a good couple hours, because you definitely need to invest some time into that game for a good couple hours.
You do. It is a few hours long. But to that case in point, I would say if you like Betrayal at House on the Hill, there's another fantastic game that is not from a company that I've worked for in the past, but that is an amazing game that is Cthulhu based. It's called Mansions of Madness, and or Mansion of Madness, and it is if you ever wanted to play Betrayal at House on the Hill and you felt like that game was too much and it's intimidating, because there are a lot of rules to it, and honestly those rules probably aren't as clean as they could be. There are some things that come up, like when the haunt happens, where you can be like, wait, so these are the rules for this, but the way this is written, this contradicts what the other book says. Because basically what happens during that game, for anyone that's listening that hasn't played, is at one point during the game, something spooky is going to really happen, and it's going to shake things up, and you have what's called the haunt. One of you becomes a betrayer, or some of you become a betrayer, and it's sort of like a one versus many, or our group versus your group, good guys versus bad guys, or sometimes it's just you versus the house. So because there's so many scenarios, and they all have different rules, it can get a little confusing. Now, Mansions of Madness is that, but what if you had an app that just walked you all through it? So,
right.
So what it gives you is it just gives you an app that does all of that for you. So all of that fiddly business is gone, and it'll be like, it's your turn. You have 2 actions. Here's what you can do. Go. So you still play on a board, but the board gets sort of opened up as you explore. So you start on like one part of the house, and as you go into other rooms, they pop up. So you're just basically have tiles, and you use them to build the house that you're exploring, like in Betrayal at House on the Hill. But yeah, very cool.
And you're right, that game is also very difficult too, with that haunt factor in it.
And Mansions of Madness is basically all Cthulhu-y stuff. So it's all Lovecraft. There's always tentacles. It's always really dark and really bleak. Which reminds me, I'm actually reading through comic book wise Fatale right now, which I hadn't read. Speaking of amazing indie comics, which is another, if anyone's listening to this and you like Lovecraft stuff and you haven't read Fatale, I feel bad that I hadn't read it till now. It's so amazing. I know it's old, but it's so amazing.
That's the Ed Brubaker comic book, right?
It is. Yeah, it is Ed Brubaker. And now I'm on this huge Ed Brubaker kick, and I'm just dredging up everything I can find that is Ed Brubaker, which within the big 2 and outside of it, to read, because he is an amazing writer.
His writing is absolutely amazing, and for anyone who's not familiar with who Ed Brubaker is, we wouldn't have The Winter Soldier if it wasn't for Ed Brubaker.
Yes, exactly, yes.
He wrote probably one of the best, if not the greatest run on Captain America, in my opinion, ever. The current writer of Captain America is also extremely good. His name now escapes me, but he's the first African-American writer to write Captain America. Ed Brubaker, man, nailed it out of the park with his run. The Winter Soldier, Steve's death, and then afterwards when Bucky becomes Cap. But All good stuff. But the video I got hooked on you from is Vampirella. What made you guys want to do a Vampirella video for Top 10 Nerd? I mean, besides the fact that there is no Vampirella content coverage out there. I mean, God, I just got done trying to find coverage for a very obscure Fangoria comic book series that got canceled called Bump. Which crossed over with Hack Slash, if you're familiar with Cassie Hack, and I couldn't find one single video about it. But Vampirella is also right up there in terms of like trying to find people covering her material. Was that the reason why you did her?
Vampirella has been around for so long. Like, I found it strange that this was kind of like the first thing I think even that we had really done on her. That writer for Captain America, by the way, is Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think is who you're thinking of.
Correct.
He's amazing.
Yep. First, again, African American writer to write Captain America.
Yeah, like brilliant. And I mean, so much of what Marvel is doing right now is really good.
And that is why they are succeeding and DC Comics is not. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, so for Vampirella, so the thing is that's interesting that people have this preconceived notion, I think, that I have something to do with what I get to write. And I mean, I do in a sense, because the people that I work with obviously know me. They know the things that I love the most. Although I tend to be a pretty positive and excited person in general, which is why I think I was a good fit for the channel as a host. So I definitely get given things that I think people will be like, Amanda will be so excited about this. But it's sort of like working in journalism in the sense that I sort of get assignments. So I don't really decide what videos I do. I can suggest videos. Vampirella was actually not one that I suggested, but I was very happy that I got to do it because I do love Vampirella. And it's hard because I don't think we do a lot of things on indie comics because they just don't get as many views. Like, what people want to learn about is they want to learn about Marvel and DC. And so we're trying to be accessible, like, in a mainstream way, I think is why we do the things the way we do. So when we got that video, I got excited because I was like, oh my gosh, first of all, we got to talk about indie comics. Second of all, right now, Vampirella is with Dynamite. And I love Dynamite. And third, I love Vampirella and I love vampires. So I thought it was cool. And then it was the weird thing. It's always weird writing those videos, though, because you have to manage of what do you think people know that will be interesting or new to them, and then sort of look at what you know and what might be things that are interesting or new to you. And you have to try to balance those two things. Because I always think, oh, like, this will be really good. And then some people are like, but people don't even know, that she's from outer space.
Sometimes.
And I'm like, oh, yeah. People don't know that. Or people don't know that she has wings. Some people don't know that about Vampirella, that she has actual wings.
Sometimes she's from space. Sometimes she's the daughter of the woman who, the queen of the demons.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes she is the queen, as she's related to Lilith or something like that, isn't she?
When Vengeance of Vampirella came around, which is written by Tom Snyskoski, who's currently writing Vengeance of Vampirella as a continuation to the original Vengeance of Vampirella from the 90s, ignoring the Warren Ellis story that came out afterwards with Amanda Connor. She is, in that, still the daughter of Lilith, who is on a quest to wipe out all of her brothers and sisters. However, in the current run of Vampirella, she makes fun of the fact that she is, has 30 million origins, but I think Dynamite is using the daughter of Dracula on the planet, where the rivers run red with blood origin story.
I think that's the best in my opinion, for Vampirella. I love that backstory because I just think Vampirella is such a weird, great character that to give her a backstory that is weird and great, it just really speaks to her heritage and who she is and how fun she is as a character. But I don't know. I also have weird opinions on things I've been told with comic books. Like, for example, I love 90s X-Men comics, which no one loves.
They're a mixed bag.
They're a mixed bag, but I think what I love about the 90s X-Men comics, similar to what a lot of the things that I love about Vampirella, is it's doing things that are just different and fun and let's just try this and see how it goes. And I think a lot of that was kind of how Vampirella became popular within sort of being a character who was telling us stories. Because originally her series started as her basically being part of an anthology series where it would be a bunch of different horror stories and would get a little glimpse into her life. And I feel like because her life was so crazy and out there, people just wanted to learn more about her. Like they were like, who's this space vampire that doesn't like to kill people but has to drink blood, and she has this awesome moral code, and she wears this crazy outfit, and it's just there's so much to love about her, and also so much you want to know her because you're like, I don't understand any of this, explain it. Also, those comics back in the day, woo, those were some back in the day when we were trying to get around the censorship rules on comics by going black and white. That was, yeah, there's a lot of good comics if you go back.
Now,
the original.
You mentioned your love for Dynamite. Dynamite is basically encompassing all of the stuff that the 90s comic book tropes that people actually kind of hated for a long time. People hated the way 90s comics were, especially with 2 letters, T and A, was reviled after the 90s were over.
Mm-hmm.
And Dynamite really pushes that to their advantage for sales with Red Sonja, Vampirella, the Chaos Bad Girls, Jungle Cheetah Girl, whatever that title's called. I don't read that one. The Princess of Mars. And if I'm leaving everyone out, it's only because I just can't think of them off the top of my head. Purgatory, but she's a Chaos Girl. A lot of those women in these bad girls of the 90s or whatever were reviled after the 90s were over. And in a day and age today where #MeToo and sexism and body objectification is so popular and big, why do these comics do so well, do you think, in your opinion? Is it because it's women taking control of their own sexuality in ways?
Yes, yeah, that is exactly it. And that's my take on what's going on in regards to why it's popular now. We're reclaiming it. And I think that's really amazing. And what I think is hard for people to understand, though, that are maybe not as in that movement, is that, so what's the difference, right? Like, I mean, even when I did that Vampirella video, there were a lot of people in the comments. I'm also a crazy person that likes to read my comments, so I go in and I read them, which people tell me is bad for my mental health, but I like to see what people are saying, and I like to engage with people and interact with people, because I think that's the best thing about fandom, because we're all there together. We all get to have opinions. Everybody's opinion really is valid in my mind, and we just get to like chat about things we love. And with that video, there were a lot of people that were, because one of the things I talked about is Vampirella's costume, for example, was made by a female who was in the underground comic book world, and who was a feminist. And so I talked about that, and then I talked about how her costume is very empowering and how it's very much her character. And then a lot of people were kind of confused because like, wait, Amanda, how can you say that if it's also like objectifying her? And I'm like, well, I think objectification is a hard thing to talk about. So when we talk about things like the Me Too movement and objectifying characters and things like that, it has to do with, is this change about the character, or is it about something we want the character to do? Like, is it in character or is it out of character? And beyond that, objectification is also a term that's hard to talk about, because it is a term that really is about the other person. It's not about you. If you're being objectified, I mean, that sucks for you, but really it's the other person. It's the way they view you. So you don't really have control over it. So I think a way that we can combat feeling like we have no power is by being like, no, I want to be this, sexy, strong, awesome lady. So that's what I'm going to do. And I find it very empowering, but I know that there are probably other women within the community that maybe find it too much or too objectifying, but I think it's great. But I've also been very much, obviously, the type of person who has never been uncomfortable with
your body,
like my body. Yeah. So,
and that's evident by your Facebook page or Instagram. You have pictures of you dressed as Red Sonja or Sexy Cyclops or Ruby Roundhouse.
Roundhouse, you got it.
Roundhouse.
You got it.
Or pictures of you in your underwear or completely naked, covered but naked still, and you're not like shy about it in any way. I mean, the comments are everything from very nice to, "Are you kidding me?" But how do you take that in stride, being a model and you're showing off your God-given talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to that, for me, I always think modeling was not a thing that I did that is how can I say this? I didn't decide to become a model because I was like, oh, I look so amazing. Everyone's gonna want to see me in a bikini.
My
That was not
ego is so big.
so I'm gonna flaunt it. That was not really the way that, and I think a lot of people have preconceived notions of what modeling is or can be. And I think for everybody, if you do any modeling, it's very different. Like anything anybody does. Like, why do you read comic books? For everybody, I think that's a different story and a different journey. For me, modeling, I fell into it because I love storytelling. So my background primarily is as an actor. That's what I went to school for. I went to a regional arts high school for 4 years, stayed for an extra year because my drama credits basically ate up my extracurriculars. So I stayed to learn more about economics and history and take some extra stuff that I just really loved as well. And writing, I love writing. And then from there, I went to college and studied acting for film and television for 2 years. And I have an agent, and I work in film and TV as well. So for me, anything that I do has always been about let's tell a story. And even when I write videos for Top 10 Nerd, a lot of what I do when I write those videos is I always want to give people a story that they can go to, that they can check out, something cool that happened that you got to read it. Because I think stories are a way that we as a civilization move forward and learn. And when it comes to modeling, I have a similar approach to modeling. So when I started modeling, I actually started it because I made a calendar for my partner for his birthday. I wanted to make him a calendar. So I worked with a photographer and we shot like 12, we chose 12 shots, one for each month. And I made this thing and I gave it to him as a gift. And
Aww.
it was cute. And
So you're talking about like the just so to clarify, you're talking about like kind of like those burlesque shoots that you can do for like Valentine's Day for your lover or something. You have like a sexy bedroom and you put on some lingerie and you take a photo of yourself.
Yeah, and you go, hey, this is me looking fine, and you're obviously into me, so you might enjoy me looking fine.
We've dated for so long, you're obviously into me.
Yeah. So that was a thing that I did for him, and when I did it, the photographer I was working with said that I had like a pretty good knack for like I was pretty photogenic, very comfortable in front of the camera because I've been working in front of cameras for a long time, and all of that stuff. And so for me, the fun thing was kind of getting to play these characters. Like, so when I made that calendar, I actually did it with like, oh, and this shot's going to be like, oh, I'm like this sexy like maid. And then this one's like, oh, I'm a temptress. And then over here, it's like, oh, I'm this like girl next door who's like super innocent and super sweet. So for me, it's always been about playing the characters. It's the same reason I like cosplaying, because you get to play dress up and you get to tell a story through images, and it's really fun. So when I approach modeling, that's how I approach it. Now, unfortunately, that's my story, and that's lovely. And if anyone's listening to this, they'll be like, "Oh, that's cool," or maybe they won't be like, "That's cool," but they'll know what's going on. When you look at an image, you don't get that. So there are a lot of people that obviously will make judgment calls on you because you are comfortable in your body. But a lot of the times when people do have anything negative to say, my way of dealing with any negativity in any regard is always just to kill people with kindness. So I always believe that if somebody is being negative, it has more to do with something going on in their lives and their minds than it really has to do with me at all. People tend to be very self-centered in general, I find. They tend to be pretty in our own heads. And so my thing is just to always try to not take anything personally and just know that, I'm comfortable in who I am, and all I want is for people to feel that way. So if people don't like what I do, I just encourage people you don't have to look at it I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I am who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for being who I am. So that's all you can do, I think. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
it's hard being a female in the community, and already people already have preconceived notions of what you know or don't know. So being someone who then also puts yourself out there can be also very dangerous in terms of people thinking you don't know anything. But I don't know. I know what I know. So
going back to these characters, like, from Dynamite, they, I mean, God, one of the biggest Kickstarters of all time for a comic book has been based off of, one of these bad girls from the 90s, Lady Death by Brian Pulido. Just
Yeah,
explodes on Kickstarter every single time. And of course, he has a name and he has a brand and he has a fan following, obviously. But Lady Death, I mean, come on, that girl sells that book just as much as Brian does.
yeah, yeah, of course. I think with Lady Death, I mean, I think with any of these characters, like they are what you want to make them, right? Like they're fictional characters. So really it is about how we see them and what we think of them. And a lot of that is going to once again come from whatever is within you. So whatever your story or relationship to them is going to echo back at you, is how I would say that. I really love characters like Lady Death, like Red Sonja, like Vampirella, these strong, sort of, they're not doing things in conventional ways women. I mean, this is also what I liked about the Birds of Prey film that just came out. There's so many role models for women that are one notes. And like
I was not a fan of the Birds of Prey movie.
okay, that's fine. You don't have to like it. That's fine. That's fine.
I wish it was more like Wonder Woman. I feel like Wonder Woman kind of nailed it, except for that third act villain problem that every comic book movie has. It's not just Wonder Woman. What was that? Sorry.
When Ares gets upstaged by a mustache, that was one of my things too with that movie was the end there.
But my
see,
problem
this
with like
is
Birds
what
of
I'm
Prey
saying.
more has to do with like how they kind of deterred from the comic book so much. I was like, okay, Harley Quinn is Harley Quinn. She's gonna do that. Margot Robbie's gonna be her own Harley Quinn. That's aside. But when like Cassandra Cain, a character I have known since her first appearance way back in the No Man's Land storyline, is so horribly portrayed in that movie. I kind of lost it.
I mean, I would say one thing that I kind of wish that they had done was just made that a new character, because we already have a Cassandra Cain who is so different. But I didn't dislike what they did with her. I just thought, why make something that different? Like I like when people add different spins on things. So when we take a movie and we're like, we have this character, we already know them, but we want to bring something different because fans have already seen this character for years. So let's change it up a bit. And I like when we refresh things that way. But with Cassandra Cain, what they did was they kind of just gave us a completely different person. So I'm like, why do that? So I totally understand where you're coming from there. Now, I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike that they completely changed her. I just thought, why do that?
Right.
I was super worried because Barbara Gordon wasn't going to be in it, and I
Oh
thought,
yes, that's the other thing.
like that is, you can't do that with that Oracle.
Right.
Um,
And they could have just easily had a throwaway thing that like she had a bad accident opening the door one time. We don't need to bog it down with the Killing Joke story, you know?
yeah, exactly. And they could have just even, I mean, even if there was a little nod to her in the movie, I would have liked that. We
Right.
didn't get that. But here's what I liked about Birds of Prey and what I like about these female '90s bad girls is that four things, and this is a lot of what I hear from people is, oh, but Wonder Woman was so great, and I just wish it had been more like Wonder Woman. And I understand that. But my issue with everything being like Wonder Woman in terms of, girl power, feminist stories is that Wonder Woman is the good girl. She is the ultimate good girl. She always does what's right. She's always kind. She stands up for love and truth and justice. She is such a good character. I love Wonder Woman.
Because she
But
doesn't have to either. She could be exactly like her sisters and just be a bloodthirsty warrior.
she could be. She could be. And she chooses to not do that. And and part of that is obviously because she basically is like love incarnate. But not all. Here's the thing: we have a lot of male focused movies that are about men that go and do bad things, and who, like you have Wolf of Wall Street and stuff like that, which was a great film, but it's all about men doing bad things on the stock market. And it's not like we're saying these men were great, but that movie definitely glorifies them somewhat. And the thing that I want for women is I want the same thing. I want us to have characters that aren't always good, that do things in unconventional ways. I want more female anti-heroes. I want people to see women not as always having to be this pinnacle of everything that is good. Like you can do good things and not be a good person, or you can be a good person and not do good things.
Right.
I think a lot of Harley Quinn's case, a lot of the times when we see her in media. And in the comics even. I keep wanting her to be an anti-hero. One day it's going to happen. So what I liked about Birds of Prey was that it gave us that. And what I like about these female characters is that they do that for us. These are women that are more complex. They, like Vampirella, still is, she still does have to drink blood. She still will kill people. Red Sonja also will still kill people. Although I loved, they're doing their Vampirella and Red Sonja team up. Dynamite has right now as well. And there was an issue of that I was reading where Vampirella kills some people. And Red Sonja is all like sassing her for it. Like she's like, you're kind of a monster. And I thought it was funny because I was like, what, Red Sonja? You kill people all the time. What you talking about? But I like that because, that's how all people are. It's not even just gender-wise. But it sucks that a lot of the female characters always have to be like the best thing ever. Like, Kitty Pryde, the ultimate girlfriend. Like we all have this insurmountable thing to live up to. And I want that, but I also want us to have kind of characters they have more going on and their morals aren't as set. And they're still figuring it out. Because that's how people are. We're all still figuring it, I think.
What's the next top 10 nerd book that you're doing coming up? Is it going to be Fatal? Because you mentioned it earlier.
No, I'm not writing about Fatal at Nerd right now. Let's see what should be coming out soon. We've already filmed some stuff that we have that's in there. So I don't know what will be coming up immediately next because I don't know what our schedule is for that. But I know that we're probably going to be talking about more X-Men stuff. And I know people are probably tired of hearing us talk about the mutants. But I don't know.
That Hickman book was that good. It's going to keep happening.
I know, right? And we have Ten of Swords coming up. Ten of Swords is coming. We only have a few months. Hellions is coming. There's a lot of stuff that I still want to write about when it comes to mutants because there's a lot of good stuff. Wolverine, the new Wolverine volume that came out, amazing. I read issue 1 when I was in New York City. I literally had a sick day while I was there. I had a whole day of my trip while I was there where I was sick. And so I went to a comic book shop and just grabbed some comics. And everyone kept telling me I had to read it. I had to read the new Wolverine. And yeah, everyone has to read that comic. Wolverine Volume 7, Issue 1. It is amazing. It is so good. So there's going to be more of that happening. And hopefully some more DC stuff, though, because we haven't talked DC in a while. And the 5G event is also coming up. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know. I'm a little worried.
It's kind of all over the place and crazy.
I know. And the thing is, too, is I feel like we really don't know that much about it.
Right. Definitely. I had messaged you this on Facebook, but I don't know if you had responded. Are you planning on doing because I saw the Red Sonja cosplay you're doing. What's the next cosplay you're going to do coming up? Because I would love to see Vampirella.
So my cosplay schedule for the next few months, what I'm working on is Red Sonja. My designer is putting the finishing touches on, as obviously, and I always say this, I don't make my cosplays. What I do is I like to say I'm like a scavenger cosplay person, so I'll either find pieces and hodgepodge things together and modify things, or I will create designs and bring them to costumers, or I will work with a designer and costumer to build something. So we're doing Red Sonja, which is going to be awesome. I just tried out the cape today. I actually have pictures that are going to be coming up shortly on my socials of that. It's so good. And I'm very excited. And then after that, Black Widow. I want to have my Black Widow costume done in April. So I already have a different person helping me out with that. And it's going to be more of an homage. It's going to be a little bit of a combo of classic Black Widow combined with movie Black Widow.
Perfect with that movie coming.
Pardon?
I said perfect with that movie coming.
I know, right? People wanted me to do the white suit as well. Her like white winter camouflage suit.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. I mean, so is her. I mean, cool. Yeah, that is definitely a good look. I didn't like her Infinity War look whatsoever, but
I mean, I thought it was all right. It's not my favorite look either. Like I didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't love it. So I'm lukewarm on that one too.
Her 90s costume is very cool. The gray costume.
Yeah, I do like that costume.
Yeah,
I just the classic black.
Right.
But maybe, I mean, I always say, can you ever have too many Black Widow cosplays? The answer is probably no.
No.
I could probably have a closet full of them if I wanted, and be very happy with that. But then after Black Widow, we're going to be doing I think I'm going to do Madeline Pryor, and then I'm going to be doing Vampirella after that.
Oh, Madeline Pryor. Are you going to do it correctly with the underboob? Because I've heard, because recently they've redrawn her costume with no underboob whatsoever because Disney conservatism.
Yeah, no, I will be doing underboob.
Oh,
I think we're going to do the look with the full length arms. We might be doing something with the latex, but I don't know, because for the loincloth part, I want to do like the loincloth, underboob. I think she has like a red jewel as well.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the very classic Goblin Queen Madeline Pryor look
Cool. You
in
should do
honor
it
of the
like
fact that Hellions is coming up soon, and I'm very excited about that and Madeline Pryor's return potentially in that.
you should do like her classic, like standing around posing, being evil, or like maybe Photoshop in a skull of bone, a mountain of bones and skulls, but
Yes.
also do a shot where you're lifting like a fake, obviously, baby above your head, like you're gonna sacrifice and kill it.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean,
Really
I have
controversial stuff.
that's
I gotta curb my swearing, but yeah, really controversial crap.
yeah.
Get the people talking, like just blow it up. And what did this woman do? Oh my God, doesn't she know how horrible? What if so on and so forth? That I need something to be butthurt about today on the internet.
Not gonna lie, I do love triggering people. All in good fun, of course. I don't ever want to like ruin anyone's day.
Right.
But
And if they haven't read the comic book, they need to go revisit it because I think it's one of the most underappreciated X-Men stories ever because it was a huge Marvel crossover. It gave us a lot of Spider-Man stuff too.
yeah, I agree. And actually, in terms of controversial cosplays, one that I was thinking of doing, which I still have to figure out how I'm gonna do it.
Witchblade?
But
Oh, sorry.
You've seen Mandalorian, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So for Mandalorian, everyone's doing these awesome Mandalorian cosplays right now, and they're really great. And I wanted to do maybe like a sexy Mandalorian. I was thinking about that. And then I got an idea in the middle of that that was better than sexy Mandalorian, which is sexy baby Yoda,
Okay.
which is
I don't know what'd be sexy about Baby Yoda, but okay.
I mean, we could make it say it's cosplay. You can make anything sexy. This is welcome to cosplay. Everything can be sexy. It's a glorious world. Yeah,
Ooh.
I want to do a sexy Baby Yoda cosplay.
You should do what's there's a favorite anime of mine that I love. What is the name of it? Demon Lady? You ever seen her?
Demon Lady? I
Yes.
don't think so. Demon Lady.
Yeah, she is almost nude with the exception of like fur.
Just for her?
Yeah.
That's who else was I thinking of doing actually? Oh, what's her name? She has the metal armor that like slowly appears on her.
Oh, Witchblade?
Another Japanese character actually, I believe.
Witchblade?
Witchblade, yeah. That was another one that is on my short list of things to look into creating.
Oh, what's funny is that my podcast, the Dead TV podcast I do with Mistress Zeneca, we are currently covering the Witchblade television series right now, and we might have somebody big from Witchblade coming on the show with us soon.
Oh, that's amazing. When
Yeah.
is that happening?
We currently cover it right now on radiohorror.com. The podcast episodes are up there. We do, I do like 2 podcasts currently covering female-centered comic book stuff. Dead TV podcast is currently covering Witchblade. We had just done the Addams Family and Friday the 13th, the series. So it always talks about canceled television shows. The show has to have been canceled, not it went off the air, it ended or whatever. But it had to be abruptly canceled. And then Goth Girl Horror, which covers Hack Slash, the comic book series by Tim Seeley.
Yeah,
Cassie Hack, that goth, killer of slashers.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
All
You
my
just-
co-hosts, by the way, are female too.
Pardon?
All my co-hosts are female too, by the way.
Woohoo! Female co-hosts. I'm all about that life.
And
That's
then
like
the other podcast I do, oh my God, I do too many podcasts. Boobs, Blood, and Badasses. We talk about Hammer horror films.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
I
I
love
do that with my co-host Ro, and she is a graphic designer and a model as well, like yourself. And we break down those classic old Hammer movies. As much as we love them, there is stuff in them to poke fun at. So
Yeah. I mean, and I always think too, actually, when you poke fun at stuff, like people always say like, oh, poking fun at stuff and like, boo. But I'm like, it's all out of fun. Like, as long as you're not, I don't bring up things and try to rip anything a new one. I'm just trying to, have fun with it.
right,
We can
and
all laugh at the things we love, I think,
We talk
in
about the
life.
stuff that would never fly in a movie today. I mean, those are old British movies from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. You have to take them with a grain of salt. And there is stuff
But
in
you do,
those movies they would not
you
pull off very well today with a modern woke audience.
Yeah, I mean, and everything comes from a certain time period. I mean, I am watching through Buffy the Vampire Slayer right now with some friends, and who haven't seen it, who never watched all of it. And one of the things that I had to say was like, just so you know, this is set in the '90s. So as much as I love Buffy, there is some stuff even in there in like the late '90s, early 2000s that now, like, we couldn't have done that because it's just we don't you don't do that anymore. Um, so there's
Yeah,
still some things there that are problematic, and I still think Buffy for the time was very woke. Um, and then the other thing is I love Star Trek, and I love the original series. That's actually like TOS is my bread and butter when it comes to Star Trek.
uh huh.
That is very much a show that you need to watch it with, keeping in mind that this was a time when it came out. And it was also very progressive for its time, but there's still so much stuff in there that you're like, wow, that's hilarious. But
Right,
that's
right. Definitely, definitely. Well, Amanda, why don't you give away your social media that people can find you on?
Yes, yeah. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at VampX13, which has been my username since I was 12, and I probably will never let it go. You can also find me on TikTok as Amanda Does Cosplay, and that's also my Ko-Fi as well. And I also just joined OnlyFans, so if you like that. It's a weird place, but there's some cool people on there. So you can also check me out on OnlyFans at VampX13 as well.
Thank you so much for coming on the show with us, Amanda, to talk a little bit about different aspects of your career, especially Top 10 Nerd, and as well as modeling and enjoying some of the bad girls of comic books with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I will always talk about bad girls till the cows come home.